Oh, no. There we go. All the cameras took a second to come back up because I had to restart my Streamlabs literally as I was hitting the go live button. But anyway, we're here. Welcome to this week's episode of Tales from the Tavern. It is great to see you all. I have a great group of guests tonight, most of whom are new, one of whom has been here before. And I am very excited to have them all introduce themselves, so we'll get to that in just a second. Quick announcement, if this is your first time here joining in for the stream, all of our questions come from chat, so feel free to drop your questions right in chat, and I have a moderator that will make sure that we see them. We also have using channel points. If you've been watching for a little while and have racked up some channel points, we have the Ask My Question Next reward that you can turn in, and that will bump your question up to the next one in the queue. So feel free to use that if you have enough channel points. So without further ado, I'm going to have everyone go around and introduce themselves and tell us a little about who they are and where we can find them online and anything they've got that they're working on. And we are going to start with Joel tonight.
Hi, everybody. Happy to be here. Thanks, Luna, for hosting this. I am Joel at Midlife Dices on Twitter. You can, and Instagram too, I think. I work on, I'm on the other side of this whole thing. I host a show on Twitch called It's About DM Time. And that's once a week where we have Dungeon Masters talking about being Dungeon Masters. And I work on stuff on DM's Guild, been doing a lot of D&D art. I'm working on a few projects that I don't know when they're going to be coming together. There's an ebb and a flow to it.
There definitely is. I know that feeling. I'm going through that myself, so I get it. Well, Joel, thanks for coming on and hanging out tonight, and we'll go to Hooper next.
Bonjour. I am Mr. Hooper. I am the proprietary of the Imaginarium, where I currently host Inherited Earth, which is a weekly-ish Ultramodern 5e actual play. Ultramodern 5e is, I guess, the unofficial, D20 modern for 5th edition. And it is rad. I'm not getting paid by the man, so I'm not going to super officially plug that, but I do suggest looking up Ultramodern 5e on, well, I guess I am officially plugging that, on TTRPG. And Inherited Earth is a bit of a, it is definitely a homebrew setting. It asks the question, what if fantasy worlds came to us apocalyptically? And what do heroes look like in that future? What do monsters look like in that future? And what is the actual difference?
That sounds interesting. I will definitely have to check that out.
I like that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on, and looking forward to getting to chat a little bit. Craig, let's go over to you next.
Hey, I'm Craig Campbell. I'm the owner of Nerdburger Games. I design and publish tabletop role-playing games, and also occasionally, weekly now, we're finally back on a good schedule, co-host a podcast called RPG R&D, which is with an ampersand, R ampersand D, where game designers talk about GMing and game design. And then right now I've got a Kickstarter going for Secrets of the Vibrant Isle, which is a solo tabletop RPG about exploring a fantastical island and making friends with the people there.
I am definitely interested in that because I've been looking to get into solo TTRPGs, and I want to know more about this one.
That's like a common request on the show.
I know, it is. It is
solo stuff.
I've always wanted to find one that I think would be really good for streaming. But anyway, we can talk about that after. Orc, tell us about you.
Hello. I'm Orc from Mork, your friendly neighborhood Twitter orc troll, spreading good vibes and interacting with the community. That's pretty much it. I do a little home brewing on my World Anvil. I just started up a podcast where I just want to talk with people from the community about whatever. Whatever interests you, whatever interests me, and we'll just shoot the shit. That's pretty much it.
Awesome. I'm excited for you. I have not gotten to listen to your podcast yet, but I am definitely...
Oh, no worries.
I'm definitely following. I do most of my podcast listening in the car, so... And I've been working from home for the last, like, half a week, so... And Zardoz.
Hi, I'm Zardoz. I'm at Once and Future Doctor on Twitter. From there, you can find a link tree to everything else. I do a lot of random odd things. I just published a solo journaling RPG, actually, yesterday. Called 52 Weeks, A Life in the Year. And that's, you're a pro wrestler in the 1970s and 80s, working your way through from the beginning of your career in the territory days, all the way up to the end of your career, as a single solo journaling experience.
Interesting. I think I know someone that would be really interested in that.
Yeah, same.
There's a lot of folks who are very interested in it. I've also got I play with Magic Fish Radio every Saturday night. Well, not every Saturday night, but most of the time I'm in there, and they do an indie showcase in addition to their New World of Darkness in Space campaign that they're running.
Okay.
Which has been a very exciting arc that we've been on for the last span of time. And yes, I do run Duffel Bag Full of Zombies Press.
We were talking in the green room about what a cool name that is, so...
It's fantastic.
It's my brother's fault.
Well, good job, brother.
Yeah, that's to your brother's credit.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, like I said beforehand, we've had a couple of people who have joined us since we got started. If this is your first time here, please feel free to drop your questions for our panel right into chat, and I have a moderator who will make sure that we get them. You can use our Ask My Question Next with the channel points, so feel free to use that as well if you have channel points available to you. And I think actually we're going to dive in. I'm going to ask a question that I was using as an example last time, but I think is a good one to bring up because, you know, we're getting into spoopy season. So if the character that you have played the most were to dress up for Halloween, what would they dress up as?
Yeah, so I don't know if there's a character I've played the most. Probably the character I've enjoyed the most. He's a satyr swashbuckler playing in the Theros campaign. And it's actually part of his backstory that he dresses up. Satyrs are typically kind of fun-loving and exuberant and goofy, but he dresses up as a hero that he saw as a child who is kind of more gritty and tough. And so he's always dressed up as this guy in combat. But he goes from being very happy-go-lucky, and then in a combat situation, he's like gritty and mean and tough because he feels like that's what his hero was like that he's trying to be like. So he kind of is dressed up for Halloween all the time.
I admire that character. Dress for the job you want to have.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I guess if we're still going in the order.
Any order, yeah. It doesn't have to be any particular order.
So I really haven't actually gotten to be a player character in like 2 years almost. And that was that game was GM'd or DM'd by somebody who's playing on Inherited Earth on the channel. He's playing Noah McCann. It's my longtime friend and RPG buddy Mike. Ran 2 separate campaigns for us, and my character in the first campaign was Teo de Halcon, El Mejor, the best, and he was a goblin luchador, so based off of monk build, and
I love it.
I'm pretty sure he would just be strong bad every year. He's already got one luchador mask. All he's got to do is go down to the Lucha store and pick up a new one. And I'm sure Strong Bad would be a hero all throughout Dragonsport and everywhere out, throughout Mike's homebrew world. So there's Teo, and then Gordo, my Goliath chef fighter. Let's see here. Oh,
So is there another character that plays with that character that would be classified as the cheat?
as the chart. Yeah, actually, my producer over in the Imaginarium, Alan, who's I'm just putting it out there, a super freak genius. This guy, like, I've been playing music with that guy since I was a baby, and he runs Alan Arnson music on YouTube. I'm gonna plug his stuff for sure right now. He played Tabaxi Ranger and was just the worst little bastard. So yeah, he could definitely be the cheat.
Nice.
Yeah. Akka, the Tabaxi. Yeah, he could be the chort for sure. Gordo, though, I don't know that Gordo really gets Halloween, or he would get too into it. He's a Goliath. He wants to be the best at everything. He would be, man, I almost think he'd build, it's not era appropriate. He's the kind of guy, he would build a whole, like, super cosplay level. I want to say like Zool dog costume from Ghostbusters.
Yes.
Yeah. And just scare the hell out of a village and then be, hey, what's wrong? And yeah, no, well, I guess all the candy's mine. So, yeah.
So smart.
I'm going to show my age and the fact that I don't play a lot often in the last maybe 10 years or so. So if we're going to talk about characters, a lot of these characters are going to be like 2nd and 3rd edition D&D and old world, original World of Darkness and a lot of that kind of stuff. But the character that I maybe played the longest was a Dwarf Psionic Thief, 2nd edition D&D. And he was really acerbic and grumpy. And it was one of the first characters I played. So he was surprised I played a dwarf that was grumpy. And he was partnered with a half-elf thief named Janner, who was Mr. Laid Back, kind of got along. He was like a face man type. He was everybody's buddy. And I can't see Bork ever wanting to wear a costume that wasn't like maybe poking fun at Janner a little bit. He for Halloween as Janner and try very hard to be like Janner was, which is to say trying to make sure everybody's having a good time, laid back, we're going to have fun, but he would be terrible at it. So it would be a lot of, jumping on a cigar, like, hey, we're having a good time? Have fun. Get off.
Nice.
Knock off with not the having fun. Have some fun. Yeah, he would not be very good at getting people to have fun. Wouldn't be a very good costume.
Just
I don't know. I
maybe a trim.
I so rarely get to play characters. I'm always DMing. I don't know if I would have any of my few characters that I got to play dress up as anything.
How about if you can't think of one, how about a recurring NPC that you played quite a bit?
Well, my DM avatar is a character I used to play. He was a halfling that I based off of Zorro. Like,
Nice.
So he's a halfling Zorro swashbuckler, super suave, cocky, annoying, loud, boisterous. Like Antonio Banderas sort of Zorro.
I love
But
that
I don't know
so
what he would
much.
dress up as. He'd probably just dress up as his party mates just to troll them and play tricks on each other. Or dress up as the party members or as the players in the world. Disguise himself as them and just mess with them. He's more Kender than halfling.
Very meta. A Deadpool thing going on. He knows he's a character.
Right.
Exactly. He knows.
Breaking the fourth wall all the time.
Koa, the character I play in the online World of Darkness game I'm in right now, is a were-reptile. And he would probably just go in his hulked out form, which is a 45-foot tall Godzilla.
Oh my gosh.
Jeez.
for Halloween.
Nice.
That's what
Wow.
he would do just for the fun of it.
With
The
a
other
little
character-
tiny jack-o'-lantern, a little teeny person-sized jack-o'-lantern full of candy.
Oh yeah,
UNICEF box.
has a spirit running around collecting the candy for him. He's great for it. The other character I play, Henry. Henry's from BattleTech, which is 1,000 years in the future of Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Still has all of the traditions. Henry also has a media library, so he would go as whichever character stuck out to him out of the science fiction catalog that he had that day. So he would probably show up as Optimus Prime one year. It would depend basically what all he was going to do. And since he has big giant robots, they can actually just paint them up as Transformers and other things.
That's awesome. It's like that that picture that I see floating around the internet all the time, where it's somebody dressed up in a bunch of Amazon boxes with the Amazon Prime tape, and they go as Amazon Prime. That's like a Transformer.
I dig it.
I was asked this question a couple weeks ago, and I was saying my character that I played for almost a year in a campaign. Actually, it might have been a little over a year. She was a halfling rogue ranger fighter in Pathfinder First Edition, but I'm pretty sure that she would dress up as Wesley from The Princess Bride. I was like, that would be right up her alley. But
I think I like that character.
she was a lot of fun. Yeah, I really enjoyed playing her, and I miss her a lot. I've brought her back in several different reincarnations in various one-shots over the last year, so I'm like, I just want to get to play her some more. All right, well, we got a question from Corin, or in Twitch chat, he is Apache1222, and his question is, what animal or creature would you most like to have for a familiar? I have 2 cats, so I guess that's already,
In real life, that's the question.
Yes, but if you could have any animal or creature, yeah.
Yeah. I know that I've answered this like as a Twitter survey thing before.
Same.
Honestly, I love all of the worst animals. Just the most poorly, the ones that are most like, I don't want to say anathema, but like have the most antipathy towards people or whatnot. I want a mandrill baboon, like those guys, or just any small child-sized baboon, because it's like, yeah, he's small and agile. He can climb a tree and be a lookout and get through small things, small spaces, but he'll also just violently steal your donuts, and that is hilarious to me. He steals your donuts, not mine. When he goes to steal your donuts is when I get my donuts. That's the thing. And I guess if he's my familiar, then we're bros, and he's not going to steal my tasty foods. So yeah, it's just, plus it's so useful in combat. Have you ever seen what a baboon can do to a person? It's
they
really
can
quite
mess people
breathtaking.
up.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like free attacks. Go for it, guy. Yeah. And I think the mandrill is festive. So with the face coloring. So yeah, really stands out. That would be me.
I really like
Golden
pangolins.
Retriever service animal.
What's that?
You can go. Golden Retriever service animal. He can go get me a beer from the fridge.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so I'm in a wheelchair for the last 8 years or so. I've been in a wheelchair. So my first thought was a service dog, because we've talked about being able to get one. But then I thought, I also, it'd be pretty handy to have something that could lift me up and move me around. So I don't know if like a big like silverback ape or something, a gorilla, that would be pretty handy because they could just lift me up and put me down, and maybe I could apply for one of those. I don't know.
Yeah, let's
There you
start
go.
the petition right now. Let's get on it.
I've seen a service pony.
Hey, see, there you go.
Yeah.
So I mean, ponies are legal anyway to own.
Yeah.
And service
I want to.
Service silverback is already alliterative, which is I mean that's good right there. So
Want
The
to see
only
you on
thing
the
though
plane.
that you gotta ask is that your service animal, or are you the gorilla's service animal, service person?
maybe it might be a mutual
It's
relationship.
a symbiotic
Yeah,
relationship.
there you go.
Yeah, that's
Do you
the
imagine
word.
trying to like take that on a plane or something?
Yes,
Sir,
and I appreciate this
before
man's
you
answer
board,
most of all.
what is this? Oh, that's my service silverback.
Right?
Okay, sir. Does it need a seat of its own? I'll just take an open one.
Right. Does
It's finding a seat one way or the other.
Yeah, it's gonna stick.
Right. Yeah. Is there room in the cockpit?
Right. He's going to take a seat. It might come off the plane with us, but he's going to take one.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So yeah, my answer for the familiar is always the same, and it's based off of the Pathfinder 1E wondrous magical item, the Migris Locker or Migris Locker, and it's a small locker carved from fossilized wood that is found chained and sealed. When you open it, there is a desiccated hairless cat with a humanoid face, and when you first open it, it reanimates, begins to clean itself, and its face takes on the appearance of who opened it.
Oh, that's
So
creepy.
you have this you have this creepy desiccated cat corpse with your face attached to it, and it moves in like that weird jerky stutter step motion. And every night, whenever it's slain, it decays into a puddle of goo, and then next dawn it reconstitutes itself by consuming its former remains.
Oh,
It's
that's
so
so weird.
What is
It's
it
so much
called?
fun. It's called the Migris Locker, Migrus Locker. It's so much fun to throw at a party because once they identify it and you like give them a description, they're just like, what am I gonna do with this? And there's just this creepy cat with like the paladin's face on it because he opened it up, like just walking around all herky jerky.
I played Pathfinder First Edition for 2 years, and I am so upset that I've never come across this in any of my games.
It's in the
Put it
ultimate
in all of
equipment
your
guide.
games now.
It's in all of my games, just like the deck of many things. It's always there
There
to
you
mess
go.
with the players.
So now I need to know what would happen, because the immediate next thought I had is what would happen if it was a doppelganger that opened the chest.
Ooh.
Good for shenanigans.
I think the game world gets 404'd.
Dividing by 0.
Or if, when you open the chest, hold a mirror to it. What would?
Oh, there you go.
Asking the deep questions tonight.
Interesting.
I have any ulterior motive for a familiar to do anything for me or whatever. I just like an otter. They're just adorable. Like they do little human things with their hands. They're cute.
so
They romp.
cute.
They can swim. They have favorite pebbles that they keep with them to use as tools. I mean, like, otters are just wonderful.
They're very, very, very smart too,
They really are.
and mildly vicious at times. I worked in Alaska on a bay for a summer, and one of my good friends, who's actually also on the stream, had worked at this company for like 10 years or close to that. And yeah, he had some stories about otters and what a group of hungry otters looks like, that
Oh,
kind of
gosh.
thing. It's
Hey, I'll make sure I feed it.
yeah, because it will. Neighborhood cats could go missing, flightless birds. Yeah, they're impressive creatures.
This is my
You
attack
never-
otter.
You never
Yeah,
see
sudden
videos.
movements.
You never see videos of violent otters. You only see.
Dude,
Like, that would
Yeah.
hurt me. That would scar me. Like,
Yeah, they
Yeah.
don't want to shatter the glass on people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's Big Otter that's keeping that video footage.
they got a heck of a marketing campaign, Big Otter.
Oh my gosh. I like
Where
it.
everybody
Until
loves
they,
golfing
until they
for esports.
rise up and take over.
I kind
I
of
for
have
one
this.
welcome our otter overlords.
I mean, if it's gonna happen, why fight it? I have
We'll
a.
all
Big
be on our
Otter,
backs.
Big Otter is
loading.
responsible for the popularization of the word romp. Didn't really use the word before, but Big Otter got in there and kind of promoted using the word
That's
romp.
right.
Oh my gosh. I was gonna say I jokingly said my cats, but I think if I actually had to pick one, I would go with a pangolin. I don't know why I think they're so adorable, but I just think they're really cute, even though they could, like, you know, they're they've got some heavy duty claws on them, man. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Don't they burrow through concrete?
yep.
Fun.
Yeah, the sad thing is, not really a fun fact, but they are one of the most trafficked mammals in Asia and Africa. So,
Mm-hmm.
yep.
Yeah, after watching a lot of Business Insider, you realize that whenever a tree or plant is near extinction, it's because some culture believes that it is for male virility, and they just
Yep.
use it to the point of extinction.
Yep.
Like, here's this tree that's almost extinct. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Why? Oh,
Oh,
yep,
that's
same reason as everything else.
Yeah.
I-
You can find it ground up, sold in pills at your local gas station.
We should all add that to whatever it is we create for D&D, right? That increases male virility to our DM's Guild products and TTRPG stuff.
Oh my gosh, that would be amazing. That would be so
Print
funny.
it out, grind it up, do what you gotta do. Nobody said it doesn't help.
There you go. Everything just starts flying off the
Are you
shelf.
going to listen to doctors?
Yeah.
Come on.
The one of the characters that I played in a Pathfinder campaign, part of her backstory and part of how the character came to be actually was she was a character that I played in a text-based RP who was a ranger, and part of the backstory, it was just this kind of homebrew world and whatnot, and she came to that world with like a group of dire pangolins that were being like used as essentially like tanks, you know, for the group that she was joining. So that was all part of her backstory, and we never got to share that. Like, we never made it to that point in the campaign where she was able to share that information. But from one night, she was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. She had this huge scar that went from the inside of her eye all the way down her cheek that she got from a dire pangolin when she, you know, was trying to like break up a pangolin fight or something like that. So
You say dire pangolin, you mean a bulet, right?
yeah,
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Boulet.
Boulet, the land shark.
Yep.
Also Transformers.
I don't know if any of my players are watching right now. If they are, they'll be alarmed to know that I am in love with the boulet just because you can say boulet and that they are always in danger of dealing with a boulet for that very reason. I just have a boulet stat block with me at all times just in case.
Amazing.
So
I love it.
land shark. I mean, you can't. There's also the land shark.
Yeah.
I feel like just saying, all right, well, you guys have encountered a land shark, and maybe he does talk. Maybe they're not, moving through the wilderness. Maybe they're chilling out at a bar or home, and they get a knock on the door. Guess who's on the other side of the door?
Yeah.
It's your boulet.
Candy cane.
No, sir, it's a candygram.
Yeah.
Candygram.
You're that wily shark.
I'm not a shark. I'm a boulet.
I feel like this is leading up to like a Scooby-Doo ending where someone just pulls off the mask and they're like, no, it's really...
It's just a boule trying to reach you about your car's extended warranty.
Oh my god. I get that call all the time. I'm like, you know I lease a vehicle, right? They were like, oh.
I don't own a car.
Yeah.
I don't factually. My car doesn't. Almost doesn't exist, and I was getting like multiple, extended warranty calls a day, and it's just like the first time I got, excuse me, an extended warranty call was actually just strangely enough right around the time that time's car's warranty had actually run out.
Oh,
so
no.
I was like, oh yeah, let me look into that. And let me
yeah.
call you back. And I called him back, and it was like a completely different person, and I hung up. But this thing I'm getting, multiple calls a day, and it's like, dude, this car, no, it's like a radio flyer with a with a V6. You probably get off my phone.
Oh my god. That's the best mental picture I've had all day.
It's the mental picture is better than the actual ride. So I hope you enjoy that.
I want to picture like a little red wagon with like thrusters on the back of it.
I want that, actually. I'll take that. I'll trade my ride in.
There you go. All right. Well, there was a question that I stumbled on Twitter. Chat is being very quiet tonight, so I'm gonna bring this up because, well, it wasn't really a question, I guess. But it was a friend of mine sent this to me and said, hey, you guys should talk about this on Tales from the Tavern sometime. So there was a thread that was posted on Twitter, I don't know, 4 or 5 days ago. And it basically went on to talk about the days of campaigns being over and that everybody should be focusing on one-shots. So I guess my question for you guys is, what do you think about that take? And do you agree? Do you disagree? Why not? That sort of thing.
I 100% disagree. I think it all comes down to schedules between people. I mean, when I was playing D&D in high school, it was 10, 12, 24-hour game sessions, game all week, nap in between. So, like, you could have a campaign go on and on and on without a stop. As you get older and you don't have as much time, then, one-shots here and there, maybe 2 or 3, one-shots strung together. But I mean, you see articles all the time of people who've been running the same campaign for 30 plus years. And it's like right there, you have someone who just is that storyteller to keep going and going and going, bring in new players go out. I think it just comes down to your style.
I would probably need a better definition of what a campaign is. What do you think a campaign is? And then from there, extrapolate out what do you want from it, what you expect from it, and then because you could do a Pathfinder adventure path start to finish as a campaign and be done in 6 months, a year maybe, if you were meeting
for a
once
full
a week.
one, about.
And that's still a complete campaign, but it's not the years and years and years of story development and things going on in different directions, but it's still a campaign. So I think you sort of need to needle down on what you want your experience to be.
I am unclear on really the difference between campaign and adventure. I know obviously what a one-shot is. I'm not smart enough to plan a one-shot in my own in my pet setting in Inherited Earth. I'm just I want to throw in too much of the salad at all times because it's my pet setting. But like an adventure, the difference between an adventure and a campaign, because I'm running a stream, and so I'm finishing up season 1. here in a couple weeks, or over the next couple weeks, theoretically. And to me, that's an adventure. But at the same time, if I have players that don't come back for season 2, then to a certain degree, that's a campaign. Like if none of my players come back for season 2, which if that's the case, I'm disappointed, but at the same time, that's reasonable. Then that's a campaign in my mind, because you get a beginning and an end. Like, what are your guys' definition of a campaign?
I think character development. If you take something like Lord of the Rings, the trilogy, that would be a campaign. You have a full adventure, character growth, and development. And then an adventure would almost be like a novella, something that's short, maybe under 100 pages. And then a one-shot is a piece of paper, front and back. Maybe, a few pieces of paper, front and back. But
a chapter, yeah.
A chapter, yeah. A chapter's a one-shot. A book is an adventure. And a trilogy could be a campaign. Something along those lines.
Feel like people talking about one-shots are overrepresented online, because if you play a one-shot, it's off, like maybe it's with people that you don't play with a lot. So like this one cool thing happened and you want to share that with people because it's something fun to talk about with whatever your social circle is on Twitter or Facebook or whatever. If you're playing a campaign with a group of people, like you're telling those stories, but you're telling those stories to each other because you're at the table talking about the thing that happened 7 sessions ago, because what's happened 7 sessions ago is important right now. So you're recounting, you're getting a chance to retell your story, but you're doing it with the group. Telling a bunch of people, you're not trying to convey to a bunch of people online that, hey, by the way, I'm gonna write a 50,000 word essay about my campaign, like on Twitter or whatever. I think it's just people think there's a lot of people talking about one shots because that's what's getting talked about in social media circles, because that's easy to convey, like this cool thing that happened. Whereas like a campaign's like, if you want to see campaign write-ups, go find blogs. That's where people are writing up their campaigns. Facebook posts and Twitter posts and Instagrams are not the place for people to talk about campaigns. It's not conducive to that.
I think it sometimes can seem a bit daunting when you see someone who says, we get together every week, 4 or 5 hours, and you think, man, I would love to play, but I don't know if I can do that. But I know, like, I tried to start a group doing the Candlekeep Mysteries, and just basically taking all of them as one-shots, but with always the same characters. And I couldn't help after like the second one trying to somehow like weave in this meta story, even though the goal of it all was, let's just do this as a bunch of one shots, but your character is going to progress. But I kept on wanting to like put things into it that felt like it was a campaign, even though it was, very much structured to be a bunch of one shots.
So thanks.
Sorry. Go ahead.
One shots are easier to market because you can put up a one shot for $3, and if people buy it, it's 3 to 4 hours of fun, and then they go on to the next one. Whereas if you put the effort and energy into a campaign setting, that's more time, that's more resources, that's more of an outlay of money for the people who are buying it, and they may not get to use it. Which is, I think, part of the reason why one shots and adventures are more popular than, say, campaign settings in the current discourse, because they're easier to sell.
It very much appeals to like the consumer side of things, right? That we bought it, we played it, it was fun, let's move on, kind of thing.
Yeah,
I picked up one shot from Paizo for 2nd edition Pathfinder just to see what the layout was and how they structured the one shot. And the pre-made characters that they supplied had really nice, like, in-depth backstories. But all these characters knew each other from former days of being pirates. And I'm like, trying to like have these familial bonds with players, especially in a one-shot, you're not going to get it. If this was part of a campaign where you had a group of people who had started out as pirates, stuff hit the fan, they separated, came back together, then you would have more genuine interactions between the players. But when you have a one-shot and it's like, oh, my character used to have a thing for her, and I need to try and convey that when we talk randomly in this one-shot. You're not going to have like that same intense RP interactions like you do with a long-form campaign or even adventure.
Yeah, I feel like there are pros and cons to both, especially having my last several campaigns as streamed campaigns. Like, that just adds in an extra layer of everything, you know what I mean? And I love playing campaigns. I love, especially when I can play with my at-home group, you know, it's just a nice relaxed setting. You know, somebody brings over dinner and we all get to visit and catch up, and you know, it's a great way to hang out with my friends. And kind of the same with, you know, less the dinner and that sort of thing, but you know, playing a virtual campaign, I just know for me playing a virtual campaign is tough because I'm sitting at my computer and it's like, oh, well, while I'm waiting to take my turn in combat, I'm just going to scroll through Facebook or, you know, that sort of thing. So that can get really challenging. And so I feel like in a one shot, I don't have that same level of distraction because anything could be important at any time. I mean, I know that's true in a campaign too, but I feel like I feel it more in a one shot. So I don't know, it's tough. But the other thing is I like the one shots because they let me play with different people every time. And I can learn new things and try new things and, you know, test out different character builds and, you know, figure out like, oh, do I really like playing a bard, you know, which I never play in a campaign because I just don't typically play spellcasters in a long form campaign like that. But
in my Strahd campaign that I've been running for a year and a half, I think, weekly sessions, in the summer we did what I called Meanwhile, where I don't know if you're familiar with the Strahd module at all, but there's a group of were-ravens. And so for the Meanwhile thing during the summer, when one of our players would be absent, but the rest of us wanted to play, I created a short but flexible campaign that could have been a one-shot. It ended up being 3 sessions. But basically, I gave them characters that were a total 180 from their regular characters I generated, so that they got to try a completely different kind of character, and then played through this little story that ended up giving them, it was kind of like a bit of a Rogue One situation, where they knew that their characters were going to be dead by the end of it, but the information that they were to gain, or some of the items that they could gain, could be then gained by their main characters in the real campaign. That was kind of a nice mix to go from, you know, a year and a half of playing certain characters to then have a break where all of a sudden they're, you know, learning a new class and a new subclass. But we all knew it would be over fairly quick. That was a lot of fun.
That's genius. That's truly brilliant. We something that we run into in the Imaginarium is we're all just like right here. We're all full on adults with jobs or careers and families and stuff like that, and you know, just the physical and mental wear and tear of the 21st century as well. So sometimes, you know, somebody can't show up, and this is a very narrative, point A to point B driven adventure or campaign that I've got going on right now. And so, like, if more than one player is missing, it could be almost catastrophic to try to go on air. You just put an idea out there, and I'm stealing it. I'm putting it right in my pocket because I have
the other part of it, which they don't know yet, is so those characters have died. You know, in the timeline of the main story, those Were-Raven characters are dead. But nothing prevents us from, if someone says, "Hey, I can't make it," and the rest of the people I want to play, we can always do like a flashback episode because they're Were-Ravens. They're, you know, agents. They have they go out and fight and do things. They try and keep on, you know, try and keep quiet. So there's a bit of a the characters can come back whenever I need them to, and it could be like one night we're going to go in here and you're going to do this one thing. The only thing about that is I have to make sure for continuity's sake that the characters don't die, because then you can't die in a flashback.
well in D&D.
You could.
It's D&D comic books. You know, sure. Like, does death? You know, is it permanent? Yeah.
It depends on the edition, depends on the game group. I mean, ultimately, when it comes to death, it definitely seems like 5e is a little more forgiving when it comes to pain or damage, because everyone has like the option of healing. You have super low level come back from the dead spells.
Yeah. D&D 5e is definitely like that. Ultramodern, not so much. And I'm using the Ultramax subsystem. All of you guys, I gotta pitch Ultramodern to you guys as well. It's worth it. But if you like modern or sci-fi gaming, it's But you know, you not only if you die, you're dead, but if you're injured, you're injured, and that's it. You know, damage, you know, just normal, mundane, random combat damage can, you know, necessitate downloading the combat wheelchair, which I think the existence of the combat wheelchair necessitates the, you know, procurement of that particular bit of material. But yeah.
All right. Vertrox Nightblood asked us a question, and this one hopefully should be fairly straightforward unless you've played a lot of different characters. Who was your favorite PC you have made and why?
Well, speaking of, there's a bit of a segue because we were just talking about one-shots.
Yep.
I created a level 4 Goblin Monk for a one-shot that I ran, or I didn't run it, I was playing, but I streamed it. That was a month and a half ago or so. His name was Buckle, and I just loved his personality. He was actually really nice goblin, but he was also very much a goblin, so, you know, grotesque and kind of gore and stuff. But, you know, he would enter in a place that was kind of shabby and be like, "Oh, it's so luxurious here," and but where are your entrails? Like, how is this a home? That kind of thing. And he was just super fun, but he also kicked ass as a monk. I'd never played a monk, so perhaps it was just, you know, kind of the honeymoon phase, but it was a hoot to be able to run in, go nuts, and get out.
Monks in general are almost combat breaking. Goblin monks, that was my first monk, the only monk I've played. But and I guess I'll just be the next person, just talk a lot. My goblin monk, my luchador, like combat, just almost obliviated some of the combats because, monks, the whole stun lock thing is completely out of hand. And then goblins have, you know, a dex bonus, and then they can hide automatically and all this kind of stuff. And then the rage of the small folk, and it's just...
Yeah, and their disengage is a bonus action. It's like take one of the best parts of the rogue and then throw it into a monk.
Yeah. Let me hit you, 500 times real hard, stun you, disengage, and then everybody else can just go completely sick house. Yeah. And that was my favorite character so far, I guess, because it's been a while. It's been a hot minute since I've gotten to play. And I did love Gordo, my Goliath, but Teo was definitely my favorite. Just an awful little man. Actually, he was lawful good. He was I did a combination for him of kind of the luchador hero, people's hero kind of thing, along with a little bit of wuxia. There's the mystical quest to unite with 3 other heroes, and they would become the all-important heroes that would save the world. But in the meantime, he walked around with a cape and a rose at all, and was, thought he was a ladies' man, and he played a lute like a guitar, and would he stole a bar stool from the inn that they that they had first frequented, and would go to the town square, and he had in every town an entourage of other goblins that would follow him around cheering his name, and then he'd play in the square and tumble and make money. And then he was in fact just an awful squeaky little goblin, even though he had a fake voice that sounded like Antonio Banderas.
That's fantastic.
My favorite character, who I didn't get to play terribly long, but I think I'm glad I didn't play terribly long, because of the way he made me think, was in a Vampire Dark Ages game I played of Samis, named Gustav, who was pretty maxed out, or loaded up on the vicissitude discipline. For those not familiar, the Samis are kind of the Eastern European vampire types, and vicissitude is a power that allows you to flesh and bone craft. Like, you could change your form and change other people's forms against their will, and so it can be a disgusting power. And I wrote journal entries, kind of define what Gustav's worldview was and how he saw himself as a predator and everybody else as less than him, and just kind of get in that weird mindset. It was a very dark campaign that we played for a little while. And so, like, anytime there was a problem, I just, okay, how would Gustav solve this problem? And I just removed the shackles of any sort of morality. Like, whatever seemed like it would be the way to do it that would be most beneficial to him would not hurt, like, the few people that he cared about, and there weren't many, and it got the job done quickly and efficiently. That's what he did. And it was an interesting experiment in playing kind of a very dark character with kind of a grotesque side. Only character that I've ever really played kind of like that, and I enjoyed the challenge of it, but also I'm glad that I didn't play him for years and years and years. I'm not sure what that might have done to me, or how that would have made my friends react long term. Done with that, and it's like, okay, now let's play some Paranoia, and let's play a happy-go-lucky D&D game or whatever.
Paranoia. I've only gotten to play that a couple times.
Just played it yesterday.
Oh man, I would love to play it more. The one time I played it, we were on the beach, and one of us, I can't remember, revealed who they were or whatever. So a report went, "Oh no, they were snitching on me," and so my sons were playing with us, and so I shot one of my son's legs, and he basically collapsed on the beach. They were doing a bombing run, and so we all ran out, but my son was laying there on the beach and he got blown up. That's my one memory of the game.
There's a lot of accusation. Paranoia is a lot of fun.
You did say
I had a chance to play. I played it yesterday for the first time in a long time, and there was many accusations of being a terrorist traitor, or a commie, or
One thing I
or
learned in
whatever.
that game is take your stuff with you when you go to the washroom. Because I went to the washroom and came back, and one other person had taken some items off of like a card that I was given. He physically took it. It's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Take your stuff with you.
Yeah, my favorite PC is just the one I mentioned before. It was my Halfling Zorro. He was just so much fun to play, and that was back in the day of 3rd edition. So I think he was 8 different classes. It was like it was like touch a few levels of fighter, ranger for 2-weapon fighting, and then blade dancer, blade singer, I think rogue. Just
Edition
a whole mess
class
of stuff.
dipping.
Yeah, exactly.
One or two
Yeah,
levels
when I
of
can,
everything.
when I can take a 10 and tumble for like 48 or whatever it was. Like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna tumble between everything, get behind him, sneak attack. All right, I'm gonna tumble away. I no longer provoke attacks. I have a stupid amount of attacks per round, and I think he always walked around pretty much naked, so his AC was like almost 50 by not wearing armor.
Amazing.
Like, I'm gonna add my dex and my intelligence and my charisma and my wisdom.
3rd was wild. That was my
Oh
first
my God.
D&D, and
I loved it.
that back in 99, well, 2000 or 2001, yeah, and I played it for maybe a year total, I guess, and I loved it. And I picked up 4th edition and loved it. Like, I missed 4th edition. I'm gonna get on Drive-Thru RPG and get my 4th edition on. But 5th is very nice and reminiscent of 3rd, and just kind of tamps down a little bit on those cross-classing shenanigans. Doesn't make it really as worth your while, but it's still very fun. But the cross-classing from back then, it allowed you almost to make like a full spectrum character, that's like a person, in that every human out here has lots of skills,
Yeah.
whatever your job is, whatever job you go to during the day, that's not your class as a person. You have, if you're a crafter, you say you work at you work at a call center, so your main profession is that, and it's all charisma based, but then you're a crafter, so then you've got dex and int, and then maybe you have a weekend basketball game, so you do have strength and dex, and all that kind of thing. That's a real person. That is one thing that was nice about 3, but it also allowed you to have exactly what you just described.
Bananas abilities.
Yeah.
Yeah, it worked for characters like Elminster. Like, Elminster back then, I think he was like, what was he, 3 levels of cleric, 2 levels of rogue.
He was like
1
7
level.
classes.
Yeah, 1 level of fighter, and then a bunch of wizard, and a bunch of archmage, and then a bunch of chosen of Mistra. But all those little ones of like fighter, rogue, and whatever, it was like, oh, that's when he was doing this in this book, and that's when he was doing this in this book. And same with Dritz. Like, why does Dritz have levels of barbarian? Oh, well, it's from this book when he was, pissed off at orcs. Like, oh, okay, that all makes sense. It like really fleshed out a character, whereas now it's like, I'm a fighter, battle master. Like, it's, I don't know. I'm not a 5th fan, so that's just me. I'm a Pathfinder guy now.
I'm very interested in Pathfinder because it is very 3rd or 3.5 like, but
and 4th, it's a lot like 4th.
I've heard
every class has abilities.
I've heard like Pathfinder 2e is like that.
Yep.
And then
Pathfinder
2e
2e.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But sorry. Yeah. Because I mean, both of those are still out there. I can, yeah. 2e. Like I said, I'd probably just go grab 4. But yeah.
Right. Well, we are about at time to take a break. So if we haven't answered your question yet, don't worry, we will get to it. I know there's a couple that have come in. So we will definitely do that. And we will be back in just a couple of minutes, so sit tight and we will see you after the break. Hello, everyone. We're back from break. Hope you all had a good one. Welcome to the new followers who may have joined us during the intermission. One of the things that you should know is that all of our questions come from chat. And so if you have anything you would like to ask any and all of our panel, feel free to drop those right into the chat. And we have a Discord... We have a Twitch moderator who will send the messages to me through Discord, and we'll make sure that we get the chance to answer them. We had a couple of questions that came up before the break, so I would like to start with those. Let's see. We got another one from Vertrox Nightblood, which was, what is an inside joke from a game that you run or play in, and the story behind it?
Good lord.
I got one of these.
All right.
We were playing Spycraft, first edition, in 2003 in college. And I got a buddy of mine who says, don't worry, guys, I got computers. Which means which we assumed that he meant he made his character to be a computer specialist, and none of the rest of us bothered with it. Until we actually rolled the first check, and he goes, I rolled a 5, and we all looked at him like, how? You rolled a 4 on the die. Well, yeah, I've only got one rank in computers, and I don't have an intelligence bonus. Whereas Spycraft is a 3.0 derived system, and we're playing 5th level characters. So he theoretically could have 8 ranks in it, 2 feats that back this up. He could be an actual computer wizard. And that was what we understood him to have made, but that wasn't what he built.
Oh, no.
So now everyone else, whenever somebody says something like, don't worry, I got this. Do you have computers? And that's where that particular in-joke comes from.
A D&D group, there was a point where, I don't know if any of you have read Order of the Stick, which was a webcomic. I'm not sure how much it's being made anymore, if it is, but webcomic about D&D, D&D characters. And there's, relatively early in the run of the comic, there was a moment where all the characters are sneaking past goblins, and they're basically, the comic writer was making fun of making group stealth checks where if like one person failed, everybody was screwed. And they're all going along, and the characters were kind of self-aware. So like all the characters were saying like, I rolled a 17, I rolled a 22. And then the bard in the group, who is supposed to have very high charisma and not do stupid stuff like this, said, I rolled a 4! That's how the goblins knew he was there, and they were all there because it's the metagame thing. And so that became a thing in our group for years. If you boned a stealth check, you announced it really loudly, and that was how the creatures that you were trying to sneak past knew you were there because you yelled.
I don't know. I don't think I can. I don't think I want to publicly talk about our inside jokes. They're mostly, so one of the groups that I play with, it's all guys that have known each other for like 30 years.
Yeah.
So you can get away with, 3 of us were in a band together, and we toured, Western Canada a number of times. We've seen everything with each other. And so, but yeah, I can't talk about that. But there was everybody
just fill it in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Moment.
Let's just say there's one time oh no, that's totally off topic. I'll we'll put that in the bonus clips. Where when I was playing the Strahd campaign, there was one night where I had a song in my head, and I'm like, oh, I gotta figure out what song this is. My brother is in that group, and he also, I was like, hey, what song is this? And I'm humming it to him. And then and then the third person kind of heard it. And then eventually the whole table, we spent a good 10-15 minutes trying to figure out what song this is.
Oh.
When my brother called my sister-in-law, it's like, oh, you got to help us. Like, what is this song? And we figured it out. And then that became our intro theme song to every time we played. It was Steppin' Out by Joe Jackson. You know, the da 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 da. That song.
Yep.
And that's how we started every session. Is we all sing along horribly.
I love that.
To that song. And
Maybe we can end the session with it. Maybe we can end this talk with that.
Maybe, yeah.
We can all
That
step
group
out.
hasn't been getting together for a while, so that would warm the cockles of my heart to sing that song again.
Oh, that's fun.
We don't quite have any inside jokes on Inherited Earth yet. There's a lot of play. We have a character who plays a sapper, and so he's rolling around on a skateboard with a messenger bag full of explosives, and so
As you do.
one of our players often, refers to one of the other players often says that whoever just caught the grenade or landmine or what have you is, oh, he's around here, he's right over there, and there, and there. But for the 2 D&D campaigns that Mike ran for us, we've got the citrus joke because we had a player that was shopping obsessed and would just eat up time trying to find a place to buy whatever, nails, needles, fabric, that kind of thing. And one of our other players was like, well, you know what? I want to find some oranges. And since it's medieval Europe, essentially, of course there's no oranges. So every D&D game, this player brings up oranges. Like, yeah, oh yeah, we're in the tavern, and we're gonna head towards the dungeon. Do we have food? I'm gonna see if I can get some oranges. Where's the oranges? And he's walking around town asking that in character while the other player's shopping.
Yeah, we don't really have any inside jokes that I can think of. The only thing I have is like my one player, he has his catchphrase, because he's a barrister was his background. So he's a lawyer. And since he's a detective in real life, he's already pretty smart when it comes to law, and he's pretty silver-tongued as it is. So whenever there's any sort of RP, he just bullshits his way through it, and then at the end, it'll just be like, lawyered. And I'm just like, whatever. I'm like,
that could be another Strong Bad reference. Sounds like King Girl Squad.
Fire! Arrowed.
Yeah.
I'm glad somebody else. It lives in Strong Badia.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna go to Homestar Runner after this and binge everything.
Yeah. I think it's only on YouTube now.
No, apparently, and unfortunately, my producer is not, I don't believe, in the chat or watching, but he found that they are updating, and I don't mean, well, they are updating. They're producing new updates, but they're also updating their system. They've got somebody who's converting from Flash over to something that functions now, so you can, and they're converting all of their old stuff and then making their new stuff that way.
I know that
HomestarRunner.com.
They've put out a new video. Over the last couple of years still. Yeah, they put out a number of them, and they're still brilliant. It's unbelievable to think that those are around 20 years ago. They were hilarious and super well done for basically two guys who were messing around with the Flash.
Yeah, if you go to homestarrunner.com, all the strong bad emails are still there.
Oh wow. Okay.
I can
Good
pull
to
them all
know.
up.
Yeah, I see Trogdor in the chat. We actually have the Trogdor board game.
Oh my
Oh, I
gosh.
thought about getting that.
Quite hilarious.
Hoarded.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to,
Put
Yeah.
wings
you
on
have
if
to
he's a
burn the
wingling
thatchers,
dragon.
Burninating the
cottages,
countryside.
burnate the countryside, burnate the peasants, and all
There.
the thatchers, cottages.
Yes.
Yeah. Those are your goals for the game. So basically, it's a cooperative game against Trogdor. So you could play it solo, actually, where it's just you against Trogdor, and that works too.
So there's a little inside. Okay, so an inside joke for everybody watching, for all you at least here, is the Imaginarium. If you look behind me when I'm not here, this is not the Imaginarium. This is my house. But in the Imaginarium, it's Trogdor's. It's not red, it's blue, but it's Trogdor's, or not Trogdor's, but Strongbad's rumpus room.
Ah.
The actual location, the Mr. Producer, Alan, yeah, he was like, we're reproducing Strongbad's arcade room.
Nice. I don't know if any of you remember a PC game called Freedom Force. It's like a comic superhero RTS from, I think, 2000, 2001. And that was when I first got into Photoshop, etc. And I learned that you could like make skins of characters to import into the game. And then I learned how to manipulate the voice packs. So I had a friend make Homestar meshes.
Sick.
So we could put a Homestar and Strongbad in the game. And then I scoured the website and made voice packs recorded from Homestar cartoons. Because you'd need, let's say, 4 or 5 reactions for getting hurt. So the Homestar having to make some sort of grunting, hurting sound, etc. So we were able to play Homestar and Strongbad in Freedom Force. It was awesome.
We are my DMing is at least 10% Homestar Runner by volume. Actually, I've got a bunch of references in there, and aside from Vivesha, who's in the chat, I don't know that any of my players, and Mike, are really Homestar Runner fans. So it just goes right past them. When I, say marshmallows or something like that, they're just like, "What's wrong with Hooper?" Yeah. Plenty, but
20-year-old
also that I watch too much Homestar
animation.
Never too much. Never too much.
Runner.
There we go. It's back. Okay, we should be back and up and running again, hopefully.
Yep, it looks like it.
Maybe. Okay, chat's saying yay, so hooray!
Okay.
Yeah,
I would give players the option if they want their character to come back or not. And if they want them character to come back, then the rest of the party can do whatever they need to get that character resurrected. And in the meantime, if they want to pick up an NPC or if they have a secondary character that they want to play, more power to them. And if they get to the point where they're like, I kind of like this character better than my original one, like, all right, then just play as that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can just narratively feel better too. Like, like I don't really want to bog down the rest of the party trying to resurrect my old character, and this one's starting to fit in. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I'd say it's absolutely up to the player. I just had that conversation with the player today, where characters have died in our Strahd campaign, but this was like the one character, and story-wise, this character has become a bit of an anchor throughout the whole campaign. And so it's somewhat important for the character to be there. At the same time, I was saying to the player, like, it really works for the character to be dead as well. But ideally, it's up to the player. And he said, I want to keep playing as the character. I'm like, all right, then we'll make that work too. And so our next session will be on Wednesday. And the party has a plan of what they're going to do to try and bring this character back. But so I've got things working on in my head. And I just told them, your character will be back at one point. So don't be scared when it doesn't quite work right the first time. And so trying to leave him with a little bit of mystery and intrigue that he doesn't even really know what's going on. But ultimately he knows he gets to play as that character again. Which, if that's what he wants to do, then I'm not going to force him to play as something else that he doesn't want to play.
Advice for somebody who's brand new, one thing to keep, one thing you could do is with you in the group is have a session 0. Which is, if you're not familiar, it's where you kind of prepare to play the campaign. You might create characters, develop relationships, backgrounds, all that sort of thing. But then also talk about, like, how are you going to handle character death in this game? Because, you know, one game you might play it one way, another game system or different group you might play it a different way. So that way nobody's surprised when you suddenly, you know, if your character dies and the GM says, okay, well, that's it, they're gone. They're never coming back. If that's the kind of game it's going to be, just, you can talk about it and figure out how to handle all that sort of thing. And different game systems are more forgiving than others too. So I guess it's a question of looking at the game system.
Well, it's interesting because with the conversation with the player today, he had said, you know, we've talked about lingering injuries before. We haven't used them, but it's like, I definitely think there should be one. Like, oh, okay, are you sure? Because it's like, just as long as I'm still able to cast spells and stuff like that, because some of these injuries can be fairly character changing. I mean, there's always aesthetic ways around it, etc. But it was funny how he actually kind of wanted to be a little more brutal. Ends up being it's actually going to be worse for the other characters when he comes back, because he's going to be somewhat possessed by a demon who's used this opportunity to kind of to find its way into the world, into the demi-plane, and this character is like a vehicle for this demon. So the other players are going to have to fight against the madness chart, which we've never used, and it looks like a hoot. So we're gonna be rolling for madness.
Yeah, I did something similar like that in a game where I had a demon possess the NPC that had been with the party since the beginning, and we're like a year into the campaign. And this demon like reveals himself, and now they need to fight their best friend. It was one of the characters' half brothers, and it was the other character's like lover, and they're just like, oh, we have to fight this? What? No, we can't. I loved throwing that at them. Like, well, you got to make hard choices.
I think I just somehow earned your cats some treats in the chat.
Well, very cool.
I'm a hero to the cat community.
I will have to summon her over. She's on the bed.
Cats
over it.
everywhere
Take
are
long, trust me.
As far as death in a campaign goes, I've technically had 2 characters die that I was playing, and I hated both of those. Not the characters, but the deaths. And one of them made sense. The other one was like a spite kill. I went on a date, and was like, "Sorry guys, I can't make it to D&D this week. I'm going on a date," and found out that my character had been, horrifically murdered while I was on a date.
Oh,
Well, you know,
Yeah.
bros before.
Yeah. Except the buddy system trumps that particular rule, and you can't cut a bro off at the knees. But your character's dead, and the thing is if it's D&D, then there's res spells and all that kind of stuff. Wish, depending on how high level you are or what's happened in the game so far. Otherwise, some people talk about like there are GMs that are just super brutal and design their encounters and traps and everything to just ice characters, in level proportion as you go. So it's just like, you go into the campaign, you start the campaign with multiple character sheets. And then there's games like Call of Cthulhu, which I recently played and died in the last session. I didn't realize it was the last session. I didn't realize it was the climax, but I died. Which was really weird because I generally, play my characters black and then also am, obviously. So I resolve to not be the only one who dies or the first one to die. And yet there I was, the only one in this campaign. But, Call of Cthulhu's one where, make a couple characters. Because, you might not even make it through the first session sane or alive or capable physically, one way or the other. And sorry, I just looked at the chat. But so it's fair, the GM isn't in charge of you getting iced right off the bat. So just have a second character sheet there. Make two characters that you like. So if you're worried that one of your characters is going to die down the line, just have that other one as a backup, and level them up even as you go, or wait. And I would say level them up as you go. So level both your characters, your backup and the one that you're playing, so that you're not building a character that's custom tailored to the situation. That's a little cheesed. That's a little cheesed, and I'm guilty of that. But that character got spite killed, so that's fine. Otherwise, it's a game. Sometimes you lose, sometimes you die, sometimes, and if your campaign's been going for months or years, that is a narrative opportunity. And I would be, for me, if it were a long campaign type game, as opposed to Call of Cthulhu, that's not built for long campaigns, I don't think. I'd take a week or two off, honestly, a session or two off to really let the other players, process that, the other characters grieve, that can be, like I said, it's a narrative opportunity that can step up the narrative of the campaign.
Yeah, a big part of it is like, you as a player need to understand. I mean, the goal is that everybody is going to have fun. That's. I'm pretty sure we'd all agree that would be the number one goal.
God, I hope so.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the part of the fun, and a big part of the fun, is that it might not go the way you want it to go, which is where the dice come in and where the player or character death comes in. And that's such a key part of enjoying the game, is that you gotta be on the edge of your seat at some points. And so I totally agree. If when a character dies, narratively it needs to make sense to bring a new character in. You can't just like, okay, well, you're dead.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we open this door. Oh, hey, look, it's a random person there, and they want to join the party. That's not cool either.
It's Landfill's twin brother.
I was just
Landfill
gonna
2.
say it's their twin brother.
Yeah.
I'm Landfill's twin brother, Gil.
And,
Is it alright if we call you Landfill 2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It even smells like landfill.
yeah, bringing a new character, like you gotta let the DM figure out how to do that. Or I shouldn't say let the DM. The player and the DM need to work that out together. But allow the DM to kind of be the one with some information that you might not be aware of because of how they're being brought into the story.
Yeah, that's where that 2-week session gap comes in. You as the player, you've got your backup character on deck, but you wait a couple weeks for stuff to happen in game.
Yeah.
And then you come in. You do come in as a stranger.
Yeah.
You could treat the character as people were talking about, where the other characters can eulogize and bolster themselves. I mean, in a game I designed called Good Strong Hands, there's literally mechanics in the game for if a character dies or if they fall to corruption and darkness and you don't get to play them anymore. The players are encouraged to have their characters take time to eulogize that character and bolster themselves and vow to fight on in honor of their fallen. Right, and there's actually mechanical bonuses and things that they gain, resources that they gain that they can use. So, I mean, you could house rule something like that into a game as well.
That's cool.
Even if the game doesn't include it already.
Yeah.
I would also keep in mind the other players at the table, because not everybody's going to do the same thing. So you could end up with a group of guys who just, after losing a party member, they pour out a 40 and then they go on down with the next adventure, because that is the type of players they are.
Yeah.
So you sort of have to read your table and sort of understand who the people you're playing with are, and understand kind of where they're going to determine how you introduce a new character, how things move on.
I don't typically DM. I've only DM'd it, maybe twice ever. And they were both, really short, maybe 3 or 4 sessions. But I've had characters, a character that died once. Longtime viewers of the stream have heard me tell the story about how she died. And it was interesting because it was before I really got into, this was a long time ago. This was probably 10 years ago or something like that. And so it was before I got into the TTRPG community on Twitch and Twitter and all of that stuff. And it's so interesting now, to hear this conversation and how I would want to handle it now as compared to 10 years ago when I didn't have really a point of reference. And so it was just, you just need to make a new character and then we'll pick you up at the next tavern or something like that. And it was this is what happens. You were in the middle of a cave, you died. They're not going to take the time to find you a healer. So that's it. Bye. And then, there was none of the RP around, character grief or anything like that, because it just wasn't how that party played. But it's so interesting now. If I were to experience the same situation now, I would play it out so completely differently than I did then. It's just interesting how, your style of play changes as time goes on too.
Yeah, building those moments of drama and emotion. I mean, that is some of the most engaging kind of play that you can have.
Yeah.
For, maybe even more so, not maybe, I'm pretty sure, more so than any combat that you have. The moments that players remember are the ones remember when this happened? We were in the shit.
Yeah.
And that person died or was almost dead, and we got to be careful about that. They don't remember all the goblins that they've killed.
Yeah.
It's those moments of character progression and betrayal and all that stuff that makes the story interesting. I gotta share a little story. When I started playing D&D, I was like 8 or 9. It would have been the red box, the original red box edition,
Mhm.
and so we played for about a year or so. My brother and then another pair of brothers, and I was the youngest. And my character died, and my brother said to the DM, "Is there any way to resurrect Joel's character?" And the DM said, "Yeah, it's like a 4 days hike away. There's a fountain of resurrection. You gotta go there." My brother said, "It's too far away. I'm gonna cut off his head." So he took out a sword, rolled dice because I was incapacitated. Then I can't remember how that worked back then. But boom, my head was off. My character was totally dead.
Brotherly
being
love.
Yeah, I being like 8 or 9, I'm pretty sure I put up quite a fuss. And then my parents and our friends' parents said, "That's it, you guys aren't playing anymore." So we didn't play D&D anymore after that. Then fast forward about 32 years, and my brother and I are both playing in a group. And my brother's character dies in a fight with the big bad evil villain. And I checked with the DM, "Hey, is there any way to resurrect him?" And like none of us have any spells. We were a level 5 at that point. We didn't have Revivify. I can't remember what level it is. There was no way. We had no scrolls, no potions, nothing. Said, no, there's no way. I'm like, all right, I cut off his head. So I got my revenge like 32 years later.
Worth it. Worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone at the table knew that story, and they were 100% behind it.
One of our chatters, who was actually one of my players, spoke to the idea that random BS deaths are pretty weak sauce. That player doesn't know how lucky they are that they haven't caught serious gunfire yet in game, obviously, because they're all incredibly low health at all times. But it is kind of one of those things. It's like, sorry, you waded into 20 goblins. Like, I don't know what you thought that was going to do for you at level, whatever, 3 or 4. Like, one goblin's weak sauce. You can punt that guy down the street. But, sometimes BS deaths are just, that's the way it is. That's why the dice are part of the game, is really what it is. But then again, those dice become random BS death generators. And so there are lots of indie games out there, that try to circumvent that.
Yeah. I mean, a player playing stupidly, there's really nothing you could do about that. They're gonna die somehow.
3 chances, and then once they've exhausted those chances, consequences fall.
Yeah,
Right. Exactly.
that's what it is. Well, and this player wasn't complaining about that idea, like for me specifically, or anything like that. If anything, I'm real nursematey for my players. I'm there to get them through a story.
I'm the
It's less
same
a
way.
tactical game. I don't know if I said it on there. I think it was during the break. I said I've been playing Warhammer for 25-ish years, and I play Tyranids and Imperial Guard, and I get real tired of random BS deaths all over my table. So I kind of do the opposite. If I want absolute carnage on my tabletop, I'll play Warhammer. If I want to tell a story and everybody has fun, I'm going to run an RPG, and just a little bit of a buffer, between death. it's one of those things. It's like they say, you know, fudging rolls to protect your players. You know, hard confession time. I do that. You know, I'll knock off a couple points of damage because maybe I just don't want my players dying right there. You know, it's not a point in the story where it serves any purpose. You know, if they get to the big bad evil of the adventure and they die, well, when the next adventure starts with the party, you've got something to build from there. You know, and you've got, you know, your player has probably a new character sheet ready. But, you know, in the middle of a random encounter, for the most part, it's like, no. These enemies are using dummy bullets, you know, dumb bullets, or, you know, roll an extra something.
One of the biggest things that I've learned, and not that it's revolutionary, I'm sure most people are already there, is I try and think about an encounter as actually like a set of encounters that, you know, so that random encounter on the road isn't meant to kill you. It's meant to use up a couple of spell slots, maybe some hit point dice at the most. Then this trap here is meant to use maybe some of your equipment or whatever, like you might lose it there. Then there's this fight, and then there's the big fight, and all of those together add up to, by the time you get to this point, this will be a tough fight because you've gone through these things to get there, as opposed to just, boom, this fight's going to kill you kind of thing. So I've been really trying to be more cognizant of that, of thinking about an encounter as having like steps to it, and waves, not waves as in like, you know, the same enemy coming at you, but basically the first wave is this random encounter. Second wave is this natural obstacle. Third wave is this thing, and then the fourth is kaboom, now you're in trouble. Because you want players to feel like, oh no, what is going to happen here? I used to teach elementary grade 3, 4, 5 for 20 years. I had a kid who, when we'd play phys ed and we'd have like 10 minutes left, we'd play some tag. And if someone tagged him, he would just keep running anyway. And then, so I told the kids, just don't bother tagging him. Just let him run, right? Because he's not playing the game. And then he'd come up to me, Mr. Klein, nobody's tagging me. Like, well, because you don't play by the rules, so it's no fun. Like, you want to go through the game with there being no obstacles, but the point of the game is the obstacle. That's what makes it a game. And RPGs are the same way. The obstacles, whether they're combat or mystery or story or whatever, those are the things that make you want to keep playing, to come back.
Yeah, that goes into that whole encounter building where the difficulty is represented by the amount of resources the party uses. Like a light difficulty, they use up to 25% of resources, mediums up to 50%, hard is up to 75%. It's like super difficult, like they should use everything to like succeed. All spells are drained, hit points are at minimal, and then they should succeed. I like that idea. Like when you build a dungeon, hopefully they aren't abusing the short rest system, but you know, if you build a dungeon, so to speak, you know, by the time they get through 25% of the dungeon, maybe they should have used 25% of their resources, 50%, 50%. And when they get to the end, it's not hard because the enemy's hard. It's hard because they're drained. They've just slogged through this dungeon.
Yeah.
And even if it's a level 3 goblin, they're like, oh man, I just can't right now.
Yeah.
Because then you create that dilemma of, do I want to use this spell here,
Yep.
or is something worse going to happen?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
you want your players to always wonder, is there something worse going to happen?
Yeah.
We had a session where the characters were in Castle Ravenloft in Strahd, and they were drained. They were like down to nothing. And they knew that Strahd was around. They're like, oh crap, what do we do? And then one of the players said, well, it'd be pretty cheesy for the DM to throw Strahd at us here, because that wouldn't be a fight. And Strahd wouldn't do that. It was a little bit of metagaming, but once again, like, I've known these people for a long time. And so a little bit of ribbing. I'm like, yeah, no, they set up Lehman's tiny hut and they had a rest in Castle Ravenloft. I'm like, sure. And then they woke up and who was there? It was Strahd. And he kicked their asses. And
See, to me, oh, go ahead.
No.
Go ahead.
So it was funny because they were thinking, oh, we'll wake up and then we'll be strong. And then I'm like, fine. Strahd will just wait for you. Like, he knows what's going on in his castle. So they, the hut comes down, there's Strahd. I don't, not so many words. I don't want you here. And then he beat them up.
That seems incredibly on brand for Strahd. Like, yeah, I can see them, putting the hut up and like literally 2 minutes later, there's Strahd and he just stands there waiting, for them to sleep. And then it comes down and he's like, what are you doing?
What I did throw in there that I just remembered is that Strahd came to them all in a dream. And I texted it to them individually, and I said, in the dream, Strahd has told you that one of the party members has been replaced by doppelganger, but it is not you. And so they woke up trying to figure out who the doppelganger was.
Oh, it's so
I
evil.
hadn't picked any of them.
I love it.
So
That's
they spent
amazing.
a good half hour or an hour trying to figure out who the doppelganger was, but none of them were. And they were ready to like fight each other, thinking they'd figured out who it was. And I just imagine Strahd like, just, huzzah, it worked.
Look at that.
Strahd sitting there with a lawn chair and an egg timer waiting for the Lehman's tiny hut to go down.
Yeah.
But then you also have to think about, other systems, still talking about the handling death and difficulty and stuff like that. Systems that aren't D&D or even related, because
Sci-fi.
Ultramodern is absolutely kind of D&D related. It's meant to be used with the D&D monsters. And, even though you might have a minigun as a personal weapon, at level 5 or whatever, versus a boule, it's still the way it is. But it is a D20 game. But if you look at Vampire, any given encounter can end with your character in torpor at the very least. Any given combat encounter. Vampire is not a combat heavy game. I too love me some vampires. So if you know anybody who's running one online, but Shadowrun, that's one. It doesn't matter what level you are. One round can end with you as a smear against the wall. You can be painting a room. And it's just, some of these games are like that. And I've come to think of that as the fun, probably part of being waist deep in Warhammer 40k for 25 years and playing Imperial Guard, where death is basically the running gag. So yeah, and orcs and stuff like that, and it's just, wow, my character exploded from the waist up. Well, see you guys next week. It's just like that. And actually the Warhammer 40k RPGs are like that. You can be a Space Marine and get just completely sick housed, at a high level. D&D, I think, or the D&D and D&D adjacent games are the most forgiving that I've played.
Yeah.
And that they are very much that. And especially now with a lot of indie RPGs, and then a lot of RPGs out there. They're not necessarily as violent, even because D&D is about wading through seas of enemies, on your way to level 5. So they're not technically as violent, but significantly more deadly. So it has a lot to do. Vertruck's Nightblood. It has a lot. It has a lot to do. With what game are you playing? Are you playing D&D? Well, build a backup character, go forth and conquer. Are you playing Vampire? Don't be dumb. Just yeah, you got to take the social cues and the contextual cues in the game. And if you die, because again, not a combat heavy game, Vampire. If you die, that is almost 100% on you. Or you've got a dickhead for a GM. Pardon my French, but yeah, Vampire is not about killing you. Yeah, it's not.
That's funny that you. That's funny you bring up Imperial Guardsmen, because one of the people I just talked to, they were playing the Warhammer 40k TTRPG, and they were all playing Guardsmen, and they're in a tank going into battle, and first round, an enemy Tau tank rolls, crits, and just obliterates them. They're like, well, do you want to make new characters?
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, Guardsmen are red shirts. They're not meant to... They don't see the greater glory at the end of the day.
Well, and I mean, actually, I did play. I played Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. I played that before I played D&D, I believe. And I did fall in a spike trap, and I didn't die. And I don't know why. Because that game, both the GW setting games for RPGs, you're level 1, you suck. You're a rat catcher, or that's a great job. At level 1. If you're really lucky, you might be a butcher. And that's your job. That's almost your class. You're just some dude, or lady.
Handy with a knife.
Yeah, and I'm a pretty big guy in real life, but if I met an orc, my most of me is gone. I'm not fist fighting that. It doesn't matter how awesome my sword is, I'm toast. And so some of these games are like that. It's just like, dude, you, the player, my friend, are cool. Your character, not so much. Not for the next 4 or 5 levels. And yeah, so it's very contextualized. Ultramodern via Ultramax. Like I said, I really soft shoe it. People can lose arms any level. These are people using guns against orcs with guns, or a boule, and it's like, cool, I got a shotgun, rad. That boule still can bite your whole everything off, so be careful. It is very game contextual.
And we've come full circle back to boulets again.
Boule!
So this is probably a great spot for us to wrap up. We have hit our time for the night. So I'm going to have everyone go around again. Just remind us of who you are and where we can find you across the internet. We're going to go in the reverse order of the way we went when we started. So Zardoz, we're going to start with you this time.
I am Zardoz. You can find me at Once in Future Doctor on Twitter. My pinned tweet actually has a link to my link tree, which you can find my Instagram, my YouTube channel, my itch channel, or my itch page, my blog, all my stuff's there.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on and hanging out tonight. It was really nice to get to know you a little bit, and hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Hopefully. This has been very fun.
Great. Orc.
Hello, I'm Orc from Mork. I'm your friendly neighborhood trolley orc on Twitter, spreading good vibes and entertaining as many people as I can with shitposting memes. Otherwise, I do have a world anvil where I'm working on my home world of Orin. I have a podcast that I just started up where I just want to talk to anyone from the TTRPG community, and we can just bullshit about whatever you're into for however long you want to. I'll listen forever. So if you or anyone else wants to talk for great lengths of time, I'm all about it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for making a return visit this week. And yeah, I'm definitely going to check out your podcast because I'm excited for that. Craig.
It is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm Craig. The website is nerdburgergames.com. Games are available at drivethrurpg.com. I also co-host RPG R&D. You can find that on all the podcatchers. And then it's also on the nerdburgergames.com. And I've got a Kickstarter running for a solo game about exploring a fantastical island. It's called Secrets of the Vibrant Isle. It's funded, ready. It's gonna start moving into production pretty quickly. So you can check that out.
I definitely did not just click the Kickstarter link and have it pulled up for when we're done. So, well, thank you for coming on, and this was great. It's always, I always say it's really nice to be able to put faces with with Twitter handles and that sort of thing. So it was great to have you here, Hooper.
Once again, Mr. Hooper, or Hooper, whatever, if you're nasty. I have the YouTube channel, Mr. Hooper's Imaginarium. The link is in the chat. It real formal like. I'm going to do that real quick. That's what you're searching for. Right now, we're just doing the Inherited Earth campaign. We're coming up on the last couple episodes. So luckily, which are on Twitch. My handle there in the chat is how you're going to find me on Twitch. And we have all of the full-length actual plays on there. And we'll be creating some edited down versions of that. A little bit more dramatic during our hiatus. Also, I will be, hopefully in the near future, publishing a whole setting, an actual product for Inherited Earth. And yeah, you can go ahead and, I guess, if you want to, support me on Ko-Fi. We'd appreciate that. And maybe even have a Patreon. I do love money, which means I love yours, so I'll take it. I'll take it, make it my own, and put it back out in the world as a product for you.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you for coming on, and I dropped follows everywhere that I wasn't already following you, so I'm excited to check out your content.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Joel, we'll head over to you.
Yeah, I'm Midlife Dices is what I'm known as on Twitter and in the TTRPG family, etc. I host It's About DM Time. That's typically on Thursday nights. This week, we're not having a show because I'm involved in another project that will be Friday night. And then there's a charity stream on Saturday night that one of my DMs is participating in. And then, so it's about DM Time on Twitch at my channel, midlife_dices. I also have published items on DM's Guild. The best selling one is called the Raconteurs Lexicon, which is a 37-page word bank of interesting ways to say hit, attack, miss, cast spells, words for environments, NPCs, monsters, all that kind of stuff. I'm an English language arts teacher, so I decided to marry language arts and D&D, put the two together. And I know for myself, it helps my narrating a ton to be able to have, 30 words for bludgeoning attacks as opposed to always saying hit or attack. So I'll put a link to Raconteurs Lexicon there as well.
All right. And great. Well, thank you for coming on, and and sharing all of your work with us today too. Thank you all in chat for coming and hanging out and asking some great questions that got some good discussions going. And we are here every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. I am Gamer Mom Luna, the host and creator of Tales from the Tavern, where we have different guests on every week, and all of our questions come from chat. So, right now, coming up in the works, we are looking for I say we because I'm going to be hosting the stream, but I am not DMing it. We're currently looking for 2 people for a 8-week campaign of My Little Ponies being set in Ravenloft. So that should be a lot of fun. That's going to be DM'd by Ray Mayhem, for anybody who knows her. And also coming down the pike, there's going to be a podcast that I'm involved in. And then, what's today? The 10th. So in 10 days, on the 20th, I'm going to be playing a D&D game over on Zeal Zaddy's Zibble Zabble Theater. And you will get to meet all of our characters who are puppets. So, yes.
All your ideas are better than mine. I quit. I'm out.
So, come and check that out too. We are going to go raid another channel. Appropriately, we are going to go raid Marine Mammal Rescue, which, if you are not familiar with who they are, it's an otter stream.
Are there bullays?
No, just otters.
That would really put everything together.
It would. It
Otters-
really would.
Otters are
A
water
boulet with an otter familiar, or an otter with a boulet familiar?
Yes.
Otters,
It's
mate.
it's a perfect strangers kind of thing.
Otter boulet.
Otterlay.
Thank you all for coming tonight. We hope you had a great time visiting, and we'll see you all again next week on Tales from the Tavern.
Bye, everybody.
Aw.